Chapter 17. Sunday morning, I answered messages, called my sisters, and ran errands early so I could enjoy the midday sun. Putting on my bathing suit and sunscreen, I headed out to the complex pool. I ignored the kids splashing in the shallow end and swam back and forth across the deep end until my arms felt like overcooked noodles. They barely had the strength to lift my body out of the water. I lay face down on one of the lounge chairs surrounding the now empty pool and relaxed as I let the heat of the sun warm my tired body. I'd slid up into the seat so I could lay my PCD on the ground and read. I'd read several pages when I heard the soft whisper of bare feet on concrete. I ignored it, expecting the footsteps to pass and fade away, but instead they got closer, then stopped beside me, a shadow falling across my body. The scent told me it was Devon, and I twisted around until I looked up to see his body silhouetted in front of the sun. It took a minute before I could focus on his face. He was grinning and dressed in loose black trunks with Army and silver block letters on one leg and no t-shirt. Well. What have I found here? Devon sat on the edge of the chair next to mine. How has your day been? Not bad. I've gotten my chores done, talked to my sisters, swam laps, and I was reading for a bit before it's time to go to parents. I checked the time on my PCD and looked back up at him. You're home early, aren't you? A little. I got everything done and your dad sent me home. He said quitting time was when the work was done, not on the clock. I thought I'd take advantage of the free afternoon and go for a swim. I headed out and found a beautiful Amazon had already beaten me to the pool. I rolled my eyes. You're funny. I didn't take him seriously. Can you slide to one side or the other, or move to the other side if you want to talk? Looking into the sun like this is killing me. I'm gonna swim first. Then, if you're still around, I'll pull up a seat. Enjoy your book. He stood and went toward the pool. I twisted around to watch as he dropped into the water before going back to my book. Behind me, I heard the rhythmic whoosh of his arms hitting the water as he swam. I listened to him move back and forth in the water until my alarm went off, reminding me to go. I still needed to shower before going to my parents. I gathered my things, slipped into my flip-flops, and left. Half an hour later, I was headed across the courtyard to the parking lot. Devon sat on the edge of the pool, still dripping, with his feet trailing in the water. I raised one arm over my head and waved. Seeing me, he smiled and waved back. The next evening, I came home and changed out of my work clothes. It was warm out, so I chose a lightweight sundress and sandals. It would be comfortable as well as easy to get off and on when it came time to shift. I was pulling the strap onto my right heel as someone knocked on my door. I lifted my left foot and slipped that strap up before answering the door. As I approached, I picked up the scent of toasted almonds. That's Gabriel's scent. I'll be right there. I didn't bother to shout, he'd hear me without raising my voice. I grabbed my purse, making sure my PCD and a couple of the canned shakes were inside before opening the door and stepping out to join Gabriel. Closing the door, I smiled. Perfect timing. I was just pulling my shoes on. Ready? Great, let's go, he smiled, then headed back down the stairs. Oh, he stopped, turning back. Before I forget. The Aniquitos asked me to tell you, Wednesday, 7 p.m. He said bring nothing but yourself. Great, thanks for relaying the message. No problem. He shrugged, starting back down the stairs. What do you have in mind for dinner? I thought I'd see what you were in the mood for. Something high in calories. I'm starving and I'll still need to fuel 2 shifts. Me too. Fast food or sit down? I prefer sit down, but if we're in a hurry, we can do fast food. No hurry, we have all night. Do you have someplace you'd prefer? He asked. I don't want to go anywhere particularly packed, we'll wait forever, and I'd like to get out and shifted before the sun sets. I reached the ground a moment behind him. Where'd you park? That lot over there. He signaled across the courtyard, past Devon's apartment. It's the only one that had open spaces. It gets like that sometimes. If we didn't have assigned parking, I'd end up parking over there half the time. I headed for the lot. We were approaching the end of Devon's building when I could smell Devon's scent on the breeze. I looked around and spotted him in front of us, headed in from the parking lot. Hey Devon. How's your day been? I stopped him. He looked like he was coming in from work, his clothes flecked with dirt and debris and his skin not much better. The only clean piece of clothing he had on was his black leather jacket. Hey Nickie. Long. We had a couple of steers get loose and spent hours chasing them, but we got 'em. He smiled. How about yours? So far so good. I said. Devon, have you met Gabriel? Gabriel works for Bill Security. No, I've never met him. He turned to Gabriel and offered a surprisingly clean hand. Nice to meet you, Gabriel. Nice to meet you too. Gabriel subtly inhaled, scenting the air. You're Devon Wilson, right? I am, Devon's voice was carefully neutral. I'd heard you were back. I'm sorry to hear about your injury, Gabriel said. When Devon looked confused, he continued, Sorry, I hear a lot in my position. Devon nodded. I heard you've been away a while, and while no one was happy that you were hurt, there are many who are glad you finally come home. A surprised look flashed across Devon's face before he could prevent it or school his features. Well, I need to get to the shower and wash this muck off. I'll let you two go. Devon tried to get away. We're gonna find some dinner and go for a run. Do you want to come with us? I invited. Not tonight. I just want to get clean and do a lot of nothing. Slogging around in the mud today did me in. If you're sure. I'm sure. He smiled, letting me know he meant it. I'll catch you later, Nickie. It was good to meet you, Gabriel. I'll probably see you around. He stepped past us, continuing on to his apartment. We continued out to Gabriel's truck in the parking lot. Once we were in the truck where we couldn't be overheard, Gabriel turned to me. You realize he doesn't shift, don't you? Gabriel started the engine and backed out of the space. Yeah, of course. Don't you think he might be a bit awkward on a run, not being able to shift? Not really, we've talked about him and me going out together. Me in wolf form and him not, but haven't had a chance to do it yet. He runs a lot, keeps up with the training from the army. I only run on 4 legs. Gabriel nodded, pulling out of the parking lot onto the street. He probably didn't agree, but he let the subject drop. We ended up at a small diner. The food was good, though not great, but the service was fast and that counted for something. After dinner, we crossed the river and drove out past the airport before turning onto a dirt road. We bumped and bounced along a few miles until we were at the base of the Gila Mountains. The Gilas weren't nearly as tall as the Pinolinos, the range Mount Graham was part of, but they were more isolated. Gabriel pulled off to the side of the narrow dirt trail and cut the engine, but before we got out of the truck, I started feeling nervous. There was nowhere to go to shift in privacy. Gabriel must have sensed my tension. What's wrong? I'm not comfortable with the nudity part of this yet, I blushed. There's nowhere to keep from being seen out here. He took a deep breath and let it out slowly. While I understand the ideals, and I sympathize with how it feels to be suddenly thrust into something like this, it's something you're going to get over. I know. I've had modesty drilled into me all my life. It's not an easy thing to forget. Do you swim? He asked. Yeah, often. I love the water, I said, confused. What kind of suit do you wear? I have several, but most are 2 pieces. I still didn't see where he was going. Bikinis? I guess. What I'm getting at is your swimsuit doesn't cover more than your underwear, right? I guess. You're halfway there. You're used to being around people while wearing little more than underwear. When you put it that way, yeah. I mean, it's meant to be seen, but it still covers the same things. Most underwear today is meant to be seen, but that's beside the point, he pointed out. Now that you've realized how close you are, it'll be a smaller leap to get used to more. It's worth a try. In the spirit of progress, let's try something. We stay on our own side of the truck, but keep the doors open and not hide while we undress. The seat will hide the most important parts anyway. I'll shut the door and shift first, giving you a chance to finish and change with a little bit of privacy. Sounds good. I was willing to give it a try. Let's do it. Gabriel opened his door and stepped out. I climbed down and pulled my dress off over my head. I folded it and set it on the seat. I glanced up and saw Gabriel standing in the opposite doorway. He'd removed his shirt, the muscles moved under his skin as he unbuttoned the fly on his jeans. I looked away when he pushed his jeans off his hips. I bent and slipped the straps of my sandals off my heels, stepped out of the remaining straps, but stood on the bottoms to keep from getting thorns in my bare feet. Another glance told me Gabriel had not only slipped his pants off, but his underwear too, as they were still inside the jeans now draped across the driver's seat. He was pushing his door closed. As soon as the door clicked shut, I shed my bra and stepped out of my panties, putting them with my dress before I too closed the door and bent to shift. A moment later, leaving my sandals where I shifted over them, I padded around the front of the truck to meet Gabriel. Gabriel's wolf form surprised me. I wasn't expecting a huge timber wolf. His fur was layered with black, brown, and gray like a wolf portrayed on t-shirts and pottery, but his size was shocking. He was easily as tall as a Great Dane and as blocky as a bulldog. His intelligent green-gold eyes gleamed through his fur. "Are you ready?" he asked mentally, surprising me again since I hadn't lowered my shields. "How did you do that?" "Do what?" "Slip past my shields without my even feeling it." Slipping past shields is one of my talents, though most telepaths can speak through shields. Unless you have a talent like mine, listening to someone's thoughts through shields is more difficult. I tilted my head. "Yes, I'm telepathic." "Bill told me you are too, that will make this easier." He turned and took off into the foothills of the small range of mountains. "Is telepathy common?" I followed. We walked through the sandy washes, remnants of past rainstorms, while we continued our conversation. "It's not uncommon. You'll find probably half the pack has some form or another. Some can only send, some can only receive, some are strong and some weak." "Weak how?" I pushed past a long, low-hanging greasewood branch. "They need to be close to use it, generally same room close. Stronger telepaths can communicate over much larger distances, though the largest I've ever heard of is a few miles. I've never tried to use mine any farther than same room. I wonder how strong I am?" "From the strength of your voice and how quickly it manifested, it's likely you're going to be on the higher end, maybe not top strength but strong." We were wandering through the brush, in no hurry. "Let me see if I get this. I have a friend who's kindred. He hasn't told me if he has telepathy, but he said he has something similar. He picks up not thoughts but pictures. I can talk with him just like I'm talking to you now. Does that mean he's telepathic?" "Not necessarily, it could be one of several things. It could be picking up the thoughts you send is close enough to his talent that he catches them, but only when things are sent to him. Another possibility is that you are strong enough to project them into his mind and pick up his responses whether he has the talent or not." "That's possible?" "Yes, but not common. Extended use, as in constant conversation for an hour or two, can give the person without the talent a massive headache. Another possibility is familiarity. How well do you know this guy?" "We've been best friends since kindergarten. He was with me when I shifted the first time." "You know him very well. That could be a contributor. Familiarity can enhance gifts sometimes." I thought about that while we weaved our way along the dry desert floor for several minutes. Is it just me, or is not getting any darker? I knew it should be nearly dark by now. It is, Gabriel said. Your wolf has excellent night vision and you're just not noticing the darkness. We could be out here for hours and it would never get too dark to see. Most of the time. When there's a new moon, it's almost inky. You'll be able to see better than you normally would, but there's just not much light to use. That makes sense. I took off running. I enjoyed the feeling of my fur flying as I ran. Where are you going? Gabriel ran after me. Just running for a change. I marveled at how great it was not to have to shout, especially when running. Do you want to race or just play? Just feeling playful and energetic. I made a big loop and ran up behind Gabriel, where he'd slowed to an easy lope, seeming content to watch me play. As I closed in on him, an idea came to me. I gave in to impulse and jumped, aiming to pounce on Gabriel's back. He was fast and realized what I was doing. Gabriel twisted at the last moment, and I landed in the sand where he had been seconds before. He charged, butting my side with the top of his head. The unexpected blow sent me rolling, scrambling for a foothold. As soon as I could get my feet under me, I charged back. Gabriel charged again, meeting me halfway. We wrestled, playfully biting and snapping until we were both tired. I was out of breath and panting when we separated and rolled to lie on our bellies. That was fun. I was glad I didn't have to catch my breath before talking. It was. But you'll need to watch who you attack like that. It wasn't meant as an attack, I was playing. Gabriel winced as though I had shrieked. I know. I knew you were when we started. I want to make sure you understand coming up behind someone and pouncing on them can be taken as a challenge. It generally means a real fight, sometimes real fights are mortal. You're kidding. I was shocked. I had a hard time believing the fun we'd had could be deadly. You mean kindred killin' fights for dominance? Unfortunately, yes. Sometimes it's necessary. Sometimes it's kill or be killed. That's too bad. I shook my head, like I would if I were in human form. I understand killing to defend, but to prove your boss? I don't get that. There's a lot more to it, but I think you'll need to be around us longer and learn more about pack dynamics before you'll understand. I just wanted to warn you to be sure of who you play like that with. You need to make sure they know you're playing, not attacking. I will. Thanks. You about ready to head back to the truck? We'd both stopped panting. Sure. I've burned off enough tension. Let's head back. We got up and took a more direct route back. When we reached the truck, we went to our respective sides and reversed the process of shifting. I carefully placed my rear paws onto my sandals, then shifted. Standing, I opened the door and dressed. Clear, I said, as soon as I had my bra and underwear on. The driver's side door opened, revealing Gabriel had already shifted as well. I slipped my dress over my head and pulled it into place. He had his underwear on and was reaching for his jeans as I slid my feet into my sandals again and lifted them one at a time to slip the strap onto my heels. Dressed, I climbed up into the seat, pulled the door shut, and wrapped my bare arms around myself as Gabriel pushed his arms into the sleeves of his shirt. He left it hanging unbuttoned as he bent to pull on his boots. I shivered. The loss of my fur left me chilled in the cool summer night. Gabriel finished with his boots, got in, started the truck, and turned on the heater before he buttoned his shirt. Here, use this. He reached behind the seat and pulled out a worn denim jacket. It'll help take the chill off. Thanks, I wasn't expecting it to be this cool. I took the jacket and pulled it on. The faded blue cloth smelled of him. It also held an underlying scent of pack I found comforting. It's not that it's cold, it's more that you were warm in your fur, now you don't have it. The difference is the issue. You'll get used to it and learn to carry a jacket. He turned the truck around on the narrow dirt trail and headed back to town. In no time, the heater had warmed the cab, and I was no longer shivering. When we got back to my complex, I asked him drop me at the gate nearest my apartment. I gave him his jacket and thanked him for the loan, taking me out and answering all my questions. His truck didn't move until after I was inside the gate, then it pulled away.